Hi, this is JP Morgan from the Slanted Lens. I'm excited to be here in this little segment on posing that's sponsored by Tamron lenses. You know, if it freaks you out when you step on set and you're not sure what to do with talent, and man, trust me, that happens to just about all of us, one time or another. Maybe you're working with models who've never been on set before. Maybe you're working with models who you just don't click with very well. I want to give you the tools necessary so that you feel comfortable being on set and posing talent. Quick look at lens choice, quick look at how, lens angle, and then how to make the talent comfortable before you get them on set, because that's so important before they step on set, that they feel comfortable with you and comfortable with the situation and they're ready to go. And then we're going to look at composition as it relates to posing, because there's some really interesting concepts there. And last of all, just some posing basics so that we feel like we have in our arsenal all the things necessary to feel comfortable on set, pose talent, get great shots, and be able to move forward. So let's get started and take a look at posing. Thank you to Tamron lenses. Here's my 10-step list to be able to make your photo shoot more exciting and easier to pose. Number one, select a pose. Just select a pose and start your shoot. As you select that pose and you start shooting, number two is look for anything that's unflattering to the body in this experience and make adjustments immediately, but keep shooting. Don't forget the hands and the arms. Don't let them just die on you or disappear on you. Integrate those into your experience. Number four, make sure you get a good posture. Don't let people start to slouch because they may get kind of lazy in the experience as you keep going. Don't forget the hop. I love the hop. If you can get them just do a little jump, it gives them more energy and makes the thing a lot more interesting. It's going to go a new direction for you. Number seven, keep talking to them. Keep being positive. Don't get buried in your equipment. Keep talking and be positive with them, and it's going to keep the energy going. Take more photos. You may think, oh, I got 2 or 3 of this, but it's not working. But little subtle adjustments. Make subtle adjustments, take more photos. Do subtle adjustments, take more photos. Number 9, if it's starting to get boring, change the camera angle. It becomes immediately more interesting if you'll change the camera angle. Get a different lens, a different camera angle, and all of a sudden you have a whole new experience. It's just keeping the energy moving forward. Number 10, add a prop or have them flip the dress. That gives you a lot of energy. Get something moving. Have the men start doing something, throwing a hat. You know, I saw a great portrait that one of my students did where they just decided to toss the hat in the air and try to put it on their head. And they got some great shots doing that. Just give something, some energy to the situation by adding a prop or getting them to do something interesting with their hands. So there you have it, kind of a 10-step process. Then just repeat it. Just keep new pose and you go right through it again. First off, we're going to talk about perspective and camera angle. Those two things are critical because it's the very first thing you decide when you start to photograph a talent. So perspective and camera angle are going to vary depending on what kind of a shot you want to get. So for a full body shot, I want to get very low. I want my camera to get down. As I get down, it's going to elongate her legs. She's going to look very statuesque. It's going to be a beautiful look at her body. So I get down low. As I come in, I'm going to come up. And as I come up, the reason I want to come up is because I want her shoulders to be stronger. I want her face to be stronger in the image. As I come into a head and shoulder shot, I'm going to want to be just about at her eyes or slightly above her eyes. And now as I come into just a really tight shot on her face, I want to be above those eyes. So that's the natural progression. That's not in stone by any means. I mean, you can get what you call a bird's eye view. I can get up super high and that foreshortens the body completely. She now has very strong shoulders. Her face is going to be a little larger in the camera. Remember, whatever's closest to the camera is largest. I can get a worm's eye view where I come down super low. Now she's all legs because I'm so low I'm looking up. So you can start to judge, what do you want to emphasize? What do you want to diminish? So if you want to accentuate hips, you'll push them towards the camera. If you don't, you pull them away. So whatever's closest to the camera is going to be the largest. What do I want to look stronger and nicer? You don't want to get in like here and do a super low angle at her. I mean, for most people, this won't be flattering to get underneath the chin like that. Most people are going to want to be up into here. All right, so this is a look at perspective and just camera angle and perspective. Let's talk about directing talent. Directing talent starts the minute they walk in the front door. Greet them. Ask them how they're doing. Just ask them a few questions about their life and feel some genuine interest. I love finding out things about people. It's just interesting to me. I enjoy it. I want to hear it. So talk with them. Make sure the room is warm enough so that they come in that it's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to freeze to death in here. If you're shooting babies, the room better be warm enough so that mom and baby feel comfortable in that space. But just about everyone wants to feel comfortable. The space needs to be warm enough, cool enough, whatever's necessary for them to feel comfortable there. Then observe them. As you try clothing on, as you look at different options, just observe what works for them. When Christina came in, I asked her to sit down. She immediately sat down, and what'd she do? She turned immediately her right shoulder to camera, she turned to her left. So then when I had her come in and stand up, and I just asked her to stand, I said, go ahead and stand and put your weight on a back foot. She went again to her left, shoulder went forward, she turns to her left, camera right. And it was obvious at that point, after 2 or 3 times, that she felt more comfortable working to her left. We had set the lights up on the right, so we immediately moved them to the left. There's no reason to make her have to swim upstream and be moving in a direction she's not comfortable with. But we may get to the right, we may move her to the right, we may not stay in that same direction, but let's start out there where it's comfortable, and let's help her to relax and to move forward into other poses and positions. Next is, don't get lost in your equipment. You know, you're sitting there as a photographer going, is my light right? Should I get that reflector in closer? Is my exposure okay? I wonder if it's a little too dark. You know, don't get lost in all that. At some point, you've got to just say, okay, it's good. We're going to go. And now you've got all your attention goes to your model. You give them feedback. You're saying, that looks wonderful. I love the way you look there. Put that hand down. Oh, I love the hand when it goes down. Even if the pose looks terrible, you tell them how wonderful it looks and how great it looks. If you're looking at the back of the camera going, man, I've got to fix this, then you work on fixing it, but you give them a positive vibe the entire time. It's always great. I sit on set once, oh, that looks terrible. My talent died right there. The easiest way to work with talent on set is to get them to mirror you. You can say, mirror me, just do what I'm doing, but a lot of times you don't have to. If I stand up here and I'm standing up and I say, let's start here, just a simple pose, break that knee. The minute I do this, they're going to mirror it. If I say, let's bring our chin up, their chin's gonna come up. And if they're not doing it, say, just watch me and kind of do what I'm doing. You know, if I'm going like this, yeah, and I want them to be like this, it's not gonna work. If I want them to be toned down, my expression should tone down. If I want their expression to get larger, my expression should get larger. If I want them to be more excited, I need to get more excited. So have them mirror you. Last thing is just verbally make sure they're a part of the journey with you. Make sure you're talking to them about, I'm loving this, I'm looking at that, it looks great, oh, that's fabulous. Hand in the pocket looks so great, I love the way your arm comes up. Say all the things you love, and you'll start seeing all the things that you love. They'll love what they're hearing, and you'll gravitate to the things that are working. If you start concentrating on the things that are not working, oh my word, her leg looks bad there, or oh my word, then all of a sudden everything's gonna be about the things that aren't working. Stay positive, stay focused on the things that are working, verbalize the things that are working, and get your talent on the same train with you, and off you go, and you'll have a great experience. Let's start with the basics of a full body shot. First off, most people, when you ask them to stand in front of the camera, are going to stand square to the camera. Christina's doing that just right now. She's square to the camera, feet are planted, arms to her side, straight into the camera. If I take a picture of that, it's one of the most unflattering, really, presentations of the body possible. The first thing you want them to do is you want them to put weight on one foot, not on both feet. You want weight on just one foot. And because Christina likes to turn to her left, she's going to put her weight on her left foot. The first thing that happens when she puts the weight on that left foot is it automatically does two things. You see it right here. When she put the weight on that left foot, this shoulder came down and her hip kind of came out. So that hip pushes out to the side. We start to get a nice curve on her. Now she's taken the weight off from that right foot, it automatically bends the knee. So when you put all the weight on that left, it bends that knee. She's now got a much nicer curve And this knee now, you can do a lot of things with that knee. Let's take a quick shot of that. That's just a basic beginning position there. But now it's too open, a little too open. If you just bend your knee across and bend, I'm now going to get a nice S shape here. Her body starts to go just like this. See this beautiful S shape that starts, her head is turning in, her body is curving out at her hip, and it's turning back towards her leg. If I want to create a nicer line, a nicer hip line here, then I'm going to have her bring her left hand up and just put it on her hip or down to her side. She can really be comfortable with this and just push that knee out just a little bit, because I want just a little bit of air there, which gives me a nice kind of gap at her hip line. When she turns, when she's square to me like this, it's like everything's so squared off. When she turns slightly, I get a nicer bust line. Her shoulders aren't so square, it looks more feminine. Turn that shoulder in, just feels more comfortable as she moves into that position. All right, it's important that you only have one foot planted on the floor. And you talk to your model and say, just keep this other foot, don't let that other heel be on the floor ever. So it's gonna be up on the toe, it's gonna be off to the side. But the minute you plant both, they are going to be much more at rest. It's not going to be near as pleasant looking. So keep that toe up, even if they're crossing it, if they're coming across, just keep one heel off the floor. So we're going to go through like 6 or 8 kind of ending position. So the first one is I'm just going to get her to stand, and I just want her to rock her foot out to the side. Very comfortable. This hand comes forward. Just a very comfortable look. So this leg still have the weight on that back right foot. We got this coming forward, hands are to the side, and maybe just reach forward just slightly with your right hand. So now it's very simple from here. If she just simply takes this foot and crosses it behind her, now I've got a nice look at the legs here. All right, we're gonna just now, we're gonna start to introduce the hands. If you go put all your weight on your right foot, this hand comes out to the side, and you kind of bring this arm up, kind of turn away from the camera into the light. Yeah, just like that. Here's a classic. Everyone shoot, it's like almost a pin up here. Turn all the way around, you're gonna look over your shoulder back at me. All right, there you go. So remember, you're still keeping that weight on one foot. All your weight, you should never put weight on 2 feet. So when she looks back over her shoulder here, it just gives us, we get great line on her leg, her body opens up, the hip line becomes very nice. I love to keep people moving. I think it's the best thing. So look back here. Remember the way you had your foot, your weight was on this foot? So if you were to just say, I'm gonna take my weight and I'm gonna shift it from my right foot to my left foot, and back and forth. Just that little jump. It doesn't have to be much. I know she has heels on, but just a tiny little jump back and forth. One really great principle is don't let them stand too long in one position. They just start to melt into it, and they're just not going to be very energetic. Keep them moving. Keep those feet moving. So now here's just a great S with the arms. We can introduce the arms here. But if you come straighter to the camera, this is a very squared off to the camera, and it becomes a strong hip line. If you're in the hips here and you cross this way over, it's kind of a scissors look. This hand comes in, this hand comes up. We get this great S with the hands, great hips. I should have been a model. So look at all the great things that are going on here. We get this beautiful S with her arms. We get a beautiful S with her head to her hips and her leg, great presentation of the legs. So now let's go to kind of a side view in this. If she's gonna work towards this, just let's get into a strong side view where you're in the side view. And now our body can arch. We can bring the hands up and we can look over and just let everything arch here. Let's see what that looks like. Something you can have on set as a reference. So when you're shooting it, you don't get stuck. It helps you. You can show your model, you can look at it, just gives you something to keep moving ahead with. And that really helps the shoot to keep going. But always follow whatever they give you. If they do something and you like it, it looks interesting, have them do more of that. Have them do several of them. Don't just shoot one shot, just keep shooting, shooting, shooting. It'll build on itself. So let's go on to sitting now. Sitting and posing. So let's talk about poses for sitting. There's my camera. I don't want the person to square themselves to the camera. Do you know what happens? A lot of times when we set a stool down, we want to square the stool to the camera. And so when a talent sits down, they do just this. They sit. They put their knees towards the camera, and they're already in a bad way. So when you set the stool down, put the area that you want them to put their feet on towards your key light. Now when they come to sit, they've already got 90% of their pose started here because their knees are not pointing towards the camera. They're looking into the key light. A lot of the same principles apply here that we did in a full body shot. One is you don't want her to lean back. If you have a chair, go ahead and lean back a little bit. You don't want her back in here. It's just too slouchy and doesn't look good. It's not good posture. You want her to lean forward and put her shoulders back just slightly. There you go. Now we're going to get the small of her back. It's going to start to give us a line that we like. We can now pull this arm back. It starts to show this line. Keep it right up on your, and there we start to see this line, the small of her back. And her other arm can come forward, give us open up a little bit in the front there. Now we've got our legs together here. The very first thing I would do with this is, same with standing up. No, don't plant both feet on the ground. Take your forward foot and just move it back and just point your toe. Now we've already got nicer lines here. We've got lines on her, everything. I don't like this being so straight. Maybe I'd pull her hand back. There you go. A little nicer right there. Now, if you can get this so that this line of her leg is not a straight line as well, so bring that back as well, and bring this back even further. Now we have both those legs are starting to give us some dynamics, and they're looking much nicer. Rather than that planted straight leg, we get two slightly bent legs. If you're going to cross the legs, cross them low, and you can put the front leg behind the back leg. That now gives us two nice lines, nothing straight. Okay, I love this. I love when this leg comes across. So bring this leg here back over out here. Nope, keep yourself turned there. And then just bring this leg out, toe, bring this back, toe. That's my favorite position. I love that with the legs there now. Okay, as she bends and leans forward, it's going to become a little more dynamic. It's going to be a little more interesting. Just lay this rather than on your hand, rest. So that's going to get you really low. Yeah, that's going to bring her down. There we go. Hands, legs are breaking nicely. So stay right there, down low, but with this arm, I want you to give me a nice S shape here. There you go. It's fabulous if you have a couch, if you have some kind of an item that allows you to give this kind of L shape to the body. So we're going to do some reclining type poses here. So let's bring a new chair here so you can step out for 1 second. All right, when we have her sit down, we're going to recline here. Naturally, she's got her legs, but it's a long plane, and it doesn't control, from a design point of view, this space, because we get this figure here, and then we get all of this dead space. So we want to get her legs to become a little more interactive with that space. Now we're starting to control this space a little better. You got this S starts to happen. See this S shape that's going on? So that's the first one. It's very simple there. Let's trade those. Now bring your right leg, both of them up on the top still. So there's a look at some sitting and reclining poses. These are very fluid. Every body type is going to be different. And some of these poses will work for some and not for others. If you're in a lighting situation and you're really lighting and photographing into the broad side, lit here, that's going to show a lot more of the body. If I'm photographing into the shadow side of the body, now it slims the person and makes them a little less large in the frame. So there's a look at posing full body, but let's go in, let's start to work the arms into this a little more. You know, you want the arms to bend. Boring is straight down at your side. It really is the most boring. But you want the arms to bend. When people are on the red carpet, this is the most common red carpet pose for major actresses and actors right here. The reason is, covers up the stomach a little bit and gives you a nice bend in the elbows. A bride holding a bouquet naturally gives you this look. So first thing, bend these arms. Give yourself kind of area between the arms so you have breathing room. On a groom or a man, you know, put a hand in the pocket. For a woman, put a hand in the pocket if they have them. But what that does is it brings those arms out. You don't want people to bury their hands in their pockets, because now it's like, I have no hands. You want to see some fingers. You want to be able to see the hands. So let's go back to that one pose you had with arms up and one down. So if she breaks this, let's turn just slightly towards me a little bit here, other way, like that. Yeah, there you go. So if she brings her arm up here and this one dies, then I've really lost the dynamics of this pose. If this one just bends slightly, it doesn't have to bend much. It's so much more interesting and so much more dynamic. If she doesn't keep this on here, if she's willing to and comfortable, bring this hand up. Now she can get a beautiful pose with her hands. Getting the hands away from the body, keeping the hands animated. It's hard for us because we don't walk around like this all day. Well, maybe some people do, I don't know. But this is hard for us to keep hands up. But if you can just do a little, like, yeah, it's like, yeah, very easy. Those arms get up. You don't want them to be like this, like, goal. You know, you want to be able to make sure one's higher than the other. So even though she's up, make sure your left hand is higher, your right hand is lower. Knees are complicated because I don't want her knee to go like this to the camera because it just becomes a blob and doesn't flatter her figure at all. So if she has that hand coming up, she wants to break that knee across so it gives us a line across. We want to see that line on her body. Anytime this knee becomes parallel with the frame, it slows the pose down. It makes it less dynamic, less interesting. So either it's under, not parallel, or it's above. So you just I don't like it to be parallel with the edge of the frame. I want it to be more dynamic, either lower or higher. So now this moves us on to hands. Hands are really, they are so difficult. This is not good. It's uncomfortable. It's too aggressive. It feels like it's uncomfortable. You got to make sure hands are in the right place. This is one of the worst things you ever see with hands, and men do this all the time. It's like, I'm grabbing my crotch. You know, no. You know, you got to get your hands up. You got to open them up. You got to see fingers. You got to feel comfortable with it. You want to open those fingers. You want to be able to make them be very comfortable and not feel forced or pressed. So it's just very small, kind of simple things. So let's go through several poses using hands. I'm going to come in a little tighter. She's going to take her heels off so I can get my camera up a little bit. And we're going to kind of dive in and do some tight face shots and posing with hands. So if I'm shooting a head and shoulder shot like this, I'm really high on her. It's okay to square the shoulders to the camera a lot of times because you're really dealing with the head and the turning of the head. Or you can lead with one of the shoulders. Either one will work, but it's okay to square them up just a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is just looking straight into the camera. This is a common pose. I'm just going to bring this hand up and we're going to make it very gentle. I'm not going to push it under the chin. I'm not going to make a shelf under the chin. I want her to kind of open the fingers up and just let it rest on the chin here. All right, so now we can group the hands together and they can become kind of a little place for us, and you can push our chin out. So off to the side, there you go, just like that. If it feels like it's not working on the side, go to the other side, work the other side, same way. And make sure we bend this. There you go. Now, it's always really a good idea to give someone something to do with their hands. Whether they're holding a bouquet, whether they're twirling their ring. You know, just something that gives them something to do with their hands. So if I were to put this ring on her finger, and now she can just play with that and up in here. And it just gives her something to do and to kind of be playing with her finger. And there you go, nice and gentle. And it just gives her something. The hands start to be occupied and it makes them feel more comfortable, makes them feel right in the frame. Then there's just a really classic pose is just square into the camera, square shoulders, square face, and just chin comes up. So very power pose, just like that. Don't rest your chin too much. Make sure your chin's in front. You don't ever want this hand to get in front of your chin, to kind of foreshorten your chin. You want to come in and bring your chin up just a little bit. Just let this kind of just kind of open on the side of your face. Yeah, there you go. You need to bend them. Make sure those fingers are very bent. They're all bent. Yeah, there you go. On the red carpet, I looked at a bunch of pictures of famous people on the red carpet, and they were all doing this or this. One foot, hands on their hips, you know, or the classic Angela Jolie where she pushes a leg out because she wants to break out of her gown. But once you get in these areas and you do this, you've got to get out of this. Have them jump a little bit. Have them bring the hand just a little movement. Anytime you introduce movement as you're taking the pictures, it just looks a lot more exciting. So let's do several shots where you're just moving a little bit. So you bring your hand up. Okay, just a little look here. Here you go. And keep working those fingers because they're looking great. That's fabulous. So hands are hard, but don't be afraid of them. Integrate them into what's going on. Don't hide them all the time. Don't put them into pockets. You know, get them out if they're going to be in pockets. Just keep the hands involved because it makes everything. Hands and arms are the hardest, but as you get them involved, it's going to make the images way more dynamic. So there's a look at some hands and poses. The composition principles work into every one of these poses. They are trying to control the space with regards to the rule of thirds. When you do an S shape, it's controlling 2 or 3 places in the rule of thirds in a frame. You know, when you bring a hand up like this, it's a leading line. A leg out to the front on a low angle becomes a leading line into the body. Balance, you know, if you have your hands over here, your hip out here, the balance of those things become a balance inside the frame. So all the principles of leading line, simplicity is probably the one you work for the most in composition. You want this to be very simple and you want it to be graphic, and those graceful lines become a simple S shape that really, an S shape controls the rule of thirds. So everything about this is about composition, those principles. I think it's impossible to talk about posing unless you talk about lenses. Is there only one lens you can use when you're doing people photography? Yes, there's only one. No, there's not just one. There's so many different options. My favorite is a 70 to 180 millimeter lens. This is a Sony E-mount lens made by Tamron. It is by far my favorite, and I'll tell you why. Because when you get down to the bottom end of it, 70, 75, 80, 85, you're really in a great kind of medium portrait shot. It's just a fabulous lens for doing portraiture, head and shoulders, waist up. But then if you go into a 180 millimeters and you put a person full frame down the street a little bit, the background just falls so beautifully out of focus at 2.8. So I love this lens. I think it's probably the best people lens made. I think it's just incredible to be able to shoot people on this lens for those reasons. Can I always use this? Unfortunately, no, I really can't. We're shooting in a room that's a little too small for that. I can't get back far enough. So I will definitely go to the 28 to 75. When I go to the 28-75, it gives me the ability to open up a little bit. I can do it full body when I'm in a little closer to the person. I can still get to 75, which gives me a little bit of that compression on the face that I like. Makes a person look really nice if I get into a head and shoulders. It also focuses close enough that I can get in tight. And it's just a great lens to be able to use. But then a lens that you might not think of when you think of portraiture is a 35 millimeter. The reason a 35 millimeter works in my mind is I call it a contextual lens. When you shoot with a 35 millimeter, you are viewing the surroundings in context to the person. You don't want to get in so tight on the person that it makes their face and their features kind of goofy and distorted, but you step back a little bit, doesn't have to be much, and you get to see where they live, what they do, where they work. It just becomes a contextual lens. It's like really, it's an environmental portraiture lens. This, the 28-75, is right in the middle because it gives me some of that wide. It really gives me great wide, but I can get in a little tighter. So if I'm doing environmental portrait, I will sometimes jump to the 28-75 to just give me some options to get in tighter, get a few shots, give me a wider for the room. Just depends on exactly how tight the room is for me and what I want to accomplish, whether I go with the 35 or I jump to the 28-75. Both great lenses. You know, it is funny because I have shot 24 millimeter portraits before in a tight room where I want to see, I was doing a bathtub shot and it was really tight, but it's just a fun shot, and I had to use a 24 millimeter. But one lens I should give a little nod to that is just a fascinating lens to me. This is a 28 to 200 millimeter lens. It's a 2.8, 5.6. What's really interesting about this and useful is it's almost a street walk around portrait type lens because you can get those long shots, and when you're on 200 millimeters, that 5.6 does fall out of focus nicely, but you can also walk in and become more contextual with the person and do a little wider shot. So I think it's a great street kind of walk around portrait lens. So there's a look at the lenses, everything from long to short and just kind of how I use them. So there's posing and the process, working with talents. From JP Morgan's point of view, I've shot a lot of people in my career. And even though I've shot a lot of people in my career, it still makes me a little nervous every time I have to work with a talent. And I feel like I could be better at making them more energetic, more excited. It's just a constant struggle for photographers and kind of a dance with a photographer and model. That's why when I find a model that I love and I work well with them, I had a model, he and I shot so many things together because we were just on the same wavelength. Keep those people and shoot them often, but also know that new people will push you in a new direction, and that's a positive thing as well. So we want to thank Tamron for allowing us to put this together on posing. We're really excited to be able to be here. I hope everyone will find value in this and really have the excitement and the energy to get out there and start posing and start shooting. So keep those cameras rolling and keep on clicking.